Hot takes, get your hot takes, get your hot takes. Google I/O, Search Generative Experience, game changer. Like, this feels big. This feels different. If you don't like hot takes, don't watch this episode. If you overestimate the complexity and intricacies of Google, this isn't for you. If you underestimate what Google is capable of, this isn't for you. If you hate SEO, this ain't your show. But for the rest of you who are still with me and so excited at what was launched last week and the potential going forward, despite the fact that none of us have touched it and probably won't in the immediate future, come on in. Have I got an episode of the SEO Weekly for you? And I'm not going to be able to cover all the things that are happening, but I'm going to try. And we'll be talking about this for weeks, months, years going forward, and I'm here for it. Are you with me? Let's dive in. Welcome back to the SEO Weekly, where queries are weird, advice is controversial, and everything depends. I'm your host, Garrett Sussman of iPullRank, and every week I cover everything going on in the world of SEO, and holy moly, do we have a lot. Google I/O, Search Generative Experience, blog posts, SEO Twitter takes, podcasts, webinars, you name it, I'm on it. If you're into this stuff, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, give us a like, leave us a comment, share on the socials. I genuinely appreciate it, but there is a lot to cover. So let's dive in. Okay. So the big news is last Wednesday, Google hosted Google I/O. And that's where they kind of give a presentation on everything that's happening across all of the different Google products. The keynote, which took 2 hours and was started by CEO Sundar Pichai, covers everything, but at around 40-minute mark, they reveal what Google is referring to as the Search Generative Experience. Remember that name, because this is what feels like a watershed moment in the future of search. And I don't think I'm overestimating how big of a deal this is. I'm going to try to unpack portions of it, but I am not going to get to everything because there's so much in how this will fundamentally change content, SEO, the way we interact with the web. It's a really big deal. So first off, this is what I personally anticipated Google would roll out when we thought they would be building a ChatGPT competitor, something that integrates the internet and AI, right? Just a back and forth interaction where you can really speak to this interface and get a range of solutions that's exactly personalized to what you're looking for. Right now, first off, important to note that this isn't being rolled out to everyone immediately. It is part of a new Search Labs gated experience. You can sign up for a wait list. And what it is, so I'll point out first, Barry Schwartz, Search Engine Roundtable, Search Engine Land, wrote a great breakdown of everything that was covered with this new sort of product. You know, eventually, will it be rolled into normal Google search? Probably, but read his article because he summarizes it very effectively, and then keep your eyes peeled because I actually interviewed him for Rankable, which will be coming out this Wednesday, and we go through a lot of it. So much. Second of all, on Twitter, Prabhakar Raghavan, the SVP at Google, shared this 20-page document that was written by Srinivasan Venkatachary, a new way to search with generative AI. 20 pages that explains exactly the goals, limitations, some of the features, the thought process behind what is termed SGE, the Search Generative Experience. Basically, its goal is with SGE, people will be able to ask entirely new types of questions that you never thought search could answer, quickly get the lay of the land on a topic with links to relevant results to explore further, ask follow-up questions naturally in a new conversational mode, and get more done easily, like generating creative ideas and drafts right in search. In fact, SGE is rooted in the foundations of search, so it will continue to connect people to the richness and vibrancy of content on the web and strive for the highest bar for information quality. If you've been paying attention over the last couple of years between core updates, EEAT, helpful content updates, review system updates, and then other enhancement features like Google Explore and Google Discover, this new version kind of ties it all together with AI. So in the demonstration at Google I/O, we saw examples of putting in a very specific long tail query like, what's the best place to go hiking with my 3 kids and a dog, and getting generative text, different links, actual links, some advertisements, and then this vertical experience that you can continue to dive deeper. There are conversational components of it where you can go and get a follow-up and back and forth with the AI, where you can get other examples, multimodal, images, little snapshots, snackable bites of content that will give you this sense of a topic. It's very interesting, and it will also translate to e-commerce. On the e-commerce side, it's going to be a much better experience where you can get all of the information that you would see from the Google Merchant Center, in terms of shipping and products and options. There's already a joke going on in the SEO community that affiliate marketing is dead because you'll be able to get all this information in a generative AI experience right from the search interface. All of this is going to have so much potential. There are limitations. If you're expecting ChatGPT, it's not going to be that same experience. It does have guardrails. It's not going to have personas, or being able to be trained in that capacity. There are limitations in what it can and cannot do because Google is aware of the potential problems. They talk about this idea about fluidity versus factuality, that on the one hand, we want it to be more conversational in nature. However, it's less likely to be factual and prone to errors. And because it's conversational, we're more likely to believe it, which is potentially an issue if it's giving us the more information. The other thing that it addresses is this idea of when will this ultimately show up? What types of queries? Your money, your life needs to be accurate. It cannot have mistakes in it when it comes to health-related questions or financial-related questions. So the SGE is going to be much more strict and rigid when it comes to providing those types of answers. It's not going to be as fluid as we would expect from a more trivial type of query. Additionally, there's going to be a whole ton of kind of heads up notifications that, like qualifications, like making sure that that there's potentially issues with the results if that's the case. If it does not have the answer to a specific query, it is going to be trained to let you know that there's no best answer there. It's also going to include perspectives, which has been rolled out independent of SGE, but trying to surface really helpful content that is from experts and people with actual experience, bringing forward the EEAT, the experience and the expertise to really get that personal opinion, that personal perspective. So surfacing things from TikTok videos to various forums like Reddit, for instance, and getting those perspectives. There is a lot to this rollout, and it'll be very interesting to see how that ultimately impacts search. In fact, I've already spoken about this, and the SEO community talks about the idea of keywords. Google, you can't really think about things lexically anymore. Lexically, just in terms, when I say lexically, specific like words or specific queries, it is more topical. It is more semantic. It is more, are you covering this whole concept right? You're not just trying to rank for keywords, you're trying to rank for actual topics and have the best answer for those. And Google will pull from them and Google will cite those. So for publishers who are scared, in the Bard example, where that whole rollout was a disaster, that we're not going to get citations anymore. No, we are, but it is going to be different. There are going to be more zero-click experiences where Google can provide the information right on Google, but it's not in Google's best interest to completely remove citations from search. Then why would people create content? So we're going to see Google riding that fine balance. I covered a whole lot of this in my early hot take perspectives. I hosted a Twitter chat with Lily Ray, Gianluca Fiorelli, Crystal Carter, Itamar Blauer, Cindy Crum. We all shared our perspectives. You can listen to the recording that we went through, just very on, right after the keynote. That is in the show notes. Additionally, I reached out to the community and I wanted to get some of their best hot takes. So without further ado, let's jump from person to person to person to see what the SEO community thinks are the implications, these super hot takes, we don't really know what we're working with quite yet, but we're going to give our opinion anyway. Hot takes. And remember, this is fun. It's fun to speculate. Nobody's claiming to do anything. No one's giving anything prescriptive at this point. But what are the implications of a major paradigm shift around search generative experience? Well, why don't y'all take it away?
So my take on Google Search Generative Experience and the whole GPT LLM craze is that we need to wait and see. We got to be patient. All these companies that are taking over right now are rapidly evolving, trying to one-up each other, so we can't predict how this will impact us. So I recommend just continuing to create authoritative content that's easily discoverable and help your users. If these search engine updates really do negatively impact you, the content you're creating should still be usable in other digital channels. So hopefully you have that to fall back on.
Hi everyone, my name is Cindy Crum, and I hope you had a fun week watching the Google I/O presentations. What I thought was most impactful for SEO was the newly formatted search results, which if you've been using a Google Home Hub seem to look a lot like the interactions we're already getting on the Home Hub. They involve AI consolidated responses in a conversational model with buttons along the bottom that allow you to continue the conversation or drill down into a specific topic, as well as they include sources along the right. It does seem like these could be replacing some featured snippets and Google Answers. And so there is a lot of concern out there about decreasing clicks whenever this AI content is present, because people are probably going to find it very engaging and are going to click around in that to interact with the AI rather than wanting to read a web page. So that might be a little bit of bad news for the SEO community, but it is a fun new challenge.
Okay, Garrett, you wanted hot takes on Google I/O 2023, what it means for search. I think going to mean that content is going to fundamentally change. And you see that Google said, and they announced as part of Google I/O, that they're going to update the helpful content ranking system. And I think it's going to fundamentally change what content looks like. It's going to add another layer to content of actual experience, of personal experience, of personal connectivity inside of content, an additional layer to the content. And it's going to fundamentally change what actually shows up on the SERP. It's going to fundamentally change what we put into content and how content connects to the user. And that's going to mean that the expectations that the user has from content is going to end up fundamentally changing. Web content is going to fundamentally change because of what Google I/O 2023 brought.
My hot take for Google I/O this year is that we're going to see a lot more Q&A based content on SERPs. I think this basically is an expansion of the existing stuff that we see from people also asked, and also the expansion on perspectives, allowing users to more easily ask follow-up questions, is going to make Q&A content more and more important to create, whether that's video content, whether that's written content. I don't think it matters. I think in-depth Q&A content is the future of a lot of SERPs, and it's going to become really, really important for a lot of people to focus on in the future.
A quick take on Google's recent I/O event and updates on AI and the state of search. First, don't freak out. I think it's super exciting. I think a lot of the foundational things that we do on a daily basis as SEOs are going to stay the same. There's just going to be a lot of other new things to focus on, just like every time we hear something new from Google. I think focusing our attention really heavily on schema, specifically FAQ and how-to schema, because I think people also ask, are going to be a lot more prominent in a potentially new format. But that type of content, I think, will be really important, and I think it's an area that we should focus some of our attention on.
Hello, SEO Weekly. This is Jeff Coyle from Market Muse. That Google I/O event, hey? Oh my gosh, I'm sure you've heard every take on this. Mine is what I call the experience paradox. Google wants you to be the one to actually review the products, to do the detailed, comprehensive clusters of content, all stages of the buyer journey, so that they can show a thin take on pool speakers and then point you to those sources. But they want you to have the experience so they don't have to. I'm Jeff Coyle, Market Muse. See you later, Garrett.
Super excited about yesterday's announcement and Google transforming into a giant dialogue engine. I see entities here and there when people recommend product and services, so schema person. I can see entities as product inside Google Shopping Graph. And I can see that entity becomes these connecting elements of all the different features that the generative search experience bring to the user. Overall excited. Of course, we have to see it in action in so many different areas.
Hey there, I'm Krista Doyle and I do SEO over at Jasper. My hot take is that SEO now has to be your most collaborative marketing channel. Not only are the Serps going to get way more competitive once BARD is fully integrated, but with new features like Google Perspectives, SEO is going to have to play a lot more with social media, PR, and more traditional brand channels, where there used to be a little more silos, I think. So yeah, that is my hot take.
Hi, Garrett and weekly SEO wonks. Here is my Google I/O 30-second hot take. One of the most exciting things I think that's coming out from this Google I/O that SEOs might not think about at first is the ability to use Vertex AI to train and generate LLMs in the Google Cloud easily based on your data with minimal setup. You can use Vertex AI and Cloud together pretty easily, but the ability to integrate a foundation model that can do a generative task, that's going to open a ton of doors that weren't previously open. I'm also excited about the Web GPU API. It's going to make us be able to make some really cool things online. Two SEO things to think about going forward with this generative AI stuff. As Google and people who use these tools depend more and more on generative AI, people are going to be looking for human touches in their content. What does a reviewer think? What are the actual pros and cons? If Google can say what an elephant is, what do people want to know about what people think about elephants? Think about people using Reddit after searches so they can be sure to get a real human review, warts and all, in the results. If your content can be easily extracted or generated, Google is going to extract or generate it. They've been going in this direction for a really long time. They will kind of have that feed envy, want to just present people with perfect answers every time. So go after the imperfect answers. Where there is ambiguity, you can provide explanations and you can provide answers. And that's my take.
Hey, SEO Weekly, Kavi Cardos here, SEO Director at Corporate Finance Institute, with a hot take for you on the heels of last week's Google I/O. So we're finally seeing the culmination of Google's long-running quest to make every informational search a zero-click search, which means that if you're a content publisher, you need to refocus in a couple of different ways or else risk seeing your traffic and your revenue from ad-supported media rapidly go the way of the buffalo. So first, this is a good time to get serious about good old-fashioned technical SEO, because sites that can be efficiently crawled and indexed are going to have a leg up when it comes to earning those even more valuable and hard to come by organic slots. Your information architecture has never been more important than it is right now, and you have time to restructure now, so go and do that. Secondly, you've got to think about diversifying your content, because that's the only way to avoid having to fight for those precious few organic slots for all of your traffic. Perspectives is Google's answer to losing market share to Reddit and TikTok, so pay attention to what's ranking there and try to mimic those results. Explore channels outside of organic, try video. Let this be an opportunity to unleash your creativity. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll see you.
Hey, Paul Shapiro here from Shopify. Let me first just say that I have become a bit of an AI doomist recently. And despite that, the Google I.O. announcement really doesn't have me worrying about my job, at least not for the next several years. And in fact, the opposite is kind of true. I felt some of the most invigorated I have ever felt working in the SEO industry. There's some big changes on the horizon, and I think it's going to get really, really interesting. I don't want to speculate too much. Really, right now we have just a few screenshots and demos. But some of the things I'm thinking of is more sophisticated topic modeling to do our jobs, user journeying, and making use of the data that Google and Bing and the other AI-based search engines are going to give us.
I think at the crux of everything, we need to remember that there are humans behind this. And what I mean by that is that the humans are going to have to make the decision to actually put AI into their behavior. We saw even with 10 blue links, how long it took for people to start, accepting rich snippets, starting to think about zero-click searches, starting to really think about the different ways that we use search in our regular behavior. And I remember back, 2017, there was a lot of conversation about voice search being the next kind of generation of search. And AI cannot be comparable to voice search. It's a completely different entity. It's going to change the way that we do things on a regular basis. But I think that a lot of these people that are looking at AI as, oh my gosh, it's going to change the world, it's going to change the way we search, are forgetting that at the crux of this, the human has to decide to use the AI. And they have to decide to change their behavior, which is something that we really don't like to do as humans. We really don't like to change the way we do things. We don't like change, period. So as much as I think that AI is definitely going to change the way that we do a lot of things in our regular day-to-day life, I think we really are forgetting that the human has to decide that this is something that they want and that this is something that they want to use.
So you can see the opinions and the hot takes run the gamut. In fact, if you want even more, in addition to what Mordy said and Crystal covered in the Twitter spaces, they did a special podcast of Serp's Up where they rounded up more of their opinions. And Barry Schwartz, like I mentioned, he's going to be on Rankable. So let's hear some of his takes when it comes to this event and what we can expect with Search Generative Experience. Barry?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think changing search drastically overnight, changing Google.com drastically overnight will probably scare a lot of people, including Google. And Google's making a lot of money from their current Google.com experience. People want to call it the original Google. It's not the original Google. We had universal search. I think even universal search was kind of like in a beta labs environment at some point where people were able to test the sandbox. That was back in 2006 or so. So I think Google's being very, very sensitive about how they want to test this out, how they want to roll it out slowly. It will be interesting to see if Google will roll out smaller pieces of this experience into Google.com on some type of basis. I don't know if it's going to just flip the switch, or maybe it'll be like, all right, you're enabled in labs. Maybe you want to toggle on that feature in Google.com at one point. I don't know what the rollout will be like. But right now, what we do know about this rollout will be like, right now, many people can go to labs.google.com/search, sign up for the waitlist. Not everybody, it's only certain countries. Right? I think right now it's US English maybe, but you can VPN it and do stuff like that. It doesn't work on workspace accounts right now. And then in a couple weeks, maybe 2-3 weeks, it's hard to know exactly when, Google will start inviting the first wave of people. Google promised me that I'll be in the first wave. I know Google's also sending out, I think John Mueller, I've heard rumors that he's sending out invites to certain people that they can sign up on the first wave as well. That's what I'm hearing from third parties. But when we gain access, we'll be able to start playing with it. And then when will everybody gain access? I don't know. There's all these issues around. I think even Bard was opened up early at I.O. to everybody except for certain regions. So 180 regions, but not the European regions. The question is why? Well, look what happened in Italy with ChatGPT and so forth. You have this issue of citing sources, and I think Google's doing a good job of citing sources, but is that whole answer coming from those 3 or 2 or 5 links that they might show in there? I don't know. And I think there's legal issues with showing generative AI answers in search results without proper citations, especially in European countries. So I think Google's doing this as a lab experiment that will roll out slowly to see, not just in terms of the user feedback, the quality of the search results, how it might impact their ad revenue, but also in terms of legal issues around generating answers in search.
Thanks, Barry. So obviously keep your eyes peeled for that podcast episode. But Kip Lesswing of CNBC actually reported on how some publishers are kind of freaking out. And we've heard this before when featured snippets have been rolled out, that the organic traffic to websites will decline. I can understand their fears. I think, like most industries, technology is just changing the way that the world works. You're going to have to create different type of content, just basic informational content that an AI could basically report on. Think of it as like data entry. We're not going to need publishers for that anymore. If you need anything with an opinion or insights or entertaining or creativity, yeah, that's what people are going to need to create. But the basic stuff that anybody can do without any sort of experience or expertise, yeah, that's not necessarily going to reward you in any capacity going forward if it can in fact be automated. In fact, Aleda Solis gave her hot take opinions on Twitter and on LinkedIn about what this means. And some of the big losers, in her opinion, are publishers, especially those affiliates that are just trying to capitalize on people clicking on their links, but they're not actually providing any sort of insights. The winners are the actual manufacturers, especially in the e-commerce example that we saw for the red bicycle. It's like, why go to a website that gives you a bunch of crap information when you can find out everything that you need, very much tailored to your specific use case right in the SERPs? Now, as mentioned via perspectives, Google will probably do a better job of surfacing those hidden gems, as mentioned in the updated helpful content system update that's coming out over the next few weeks. That's what Google's going to try to be doing, is surfacing those hidden gems. And one of the criticisms of Google in the past has been, surfacing the thought leadership, because we're always so focused on keywords and focused on making sure we rank for a specific, set of keywords. But if the topic and the content is relevant and Google can identify that through these systems, that's going to be a better experience for consumers. Although it is funny, Matt McGee did put a poll out on Twitter and asked the community, like, okay, how do we feel about Google is bringing AI into search results? And naturally, 32% are like, I don't like it. I don't know anything about it, but I don't like it. Appreciatively, 46.9% says, I'm not sure yet, which is fair. You don't need to come to any conclusion because we haven't even had a chance to play with it yet. And 20% are, I like it. Me, I like it. I'm excited about it. I like the changes. I think it'll ultimately be a better experience. My big takeaway in the end of this is when Google rolls it out, it'll have problems. It won't be perfect, but they are basically creating a new product. We've heard for months and months and months that the results aren't great anymore because TikTok is better and people are searching for, keyword plus Reddit. Well, Google is trying, it's never going to be social. Google is never going to accomplish what TikTok or Twitter does, but it can do a better job of finding that social content from these networks and surfacing it in search in a way that's relevant to you. So is it going to be like the traditional 10 organic links that we're so used to? No, it hasn't been for 10 years. Is it just going to be the static featured snippet and you're trying to win that? Or people also ask, no, it's going to be new. It's going to be dynamic. It's going to be different. It's not going to be easy. Our jobs are not necessarily easy anymore. We always want to be able to experiment, be able to say, oh, well, I've targeted this keyword with this search volume and I'm ranking for this number. No, it's going to be more ambiguous. And attribution from organic search has been problematic anyway. In fact, I briefly touched on this with Barry about whether or not we think Google Search Console will ultimately provide any sort of insights in terms of impressions and clicks from this new search generative experience. Google didn't say anything about it, and we don't know. We know that Bing is doing something like that. Fabrice Cannell came out and said that they're going to track clicks. I mean, it's not going to be relevant to specific keywords, but at least you can get a sense of the traffic. That's something that we'll want to pay attention to. Ultimately, big picture, there's a lot of questions still. We don't know. And it's going to take time to figure out what this means for SEOs and for content creators. Are our jobs going to be gone? No. It's just going to look different. So my advice is play with it. Be open-minded. Start thinking about ways that you can create content that's helpful and topically relevant and useful and needs a human to create it. It's not just depending on some other AI for the sake of AI. Opinions matter, creativity matters. All this ultimately, hopefully, I'm cautiously optimistic, will make the web a better place. What do you think? What are your takes? Let me know in the comments. This is fun as hell. This is SEO. This is why we're in the industry. Okay, I mean, if you couldn't tell from the first section of the SEO Weekly, other stuff did happen on the internet this week in the world of SEO. So first off, Gary Ilias wrote a really great blog post for any of you who deal with international SEO, hreflang, the whole concept around the X default. So basically, you can use this within the hreflang tag to annotate a specific default of language or country in the event that you don't have the appropriate content for a specific region, which would happen and lead to a bad user experience. Now, Gary does point out if you do have content for every single region, then good on you, no biggie. But if you want to be able to redirect the user to the most appropriate page based on language or country that you deem appropriate, you can do that using the hreflang tag X default. The second part of this is we talk about Core Web Vitals a ton when it comes to SEO. Page experience we mentioned in the last few weeks has been moved from a system to a signal baked into other systems. But one of the cool things at web.dev is they pointed out that they are moving away in 2024 from the first input delay, the FIT Core Web Vital, to the INP title, which is the interaction to next paint. And so basically the difference is there's limitations with FIT where it only focuses on the delay of that first interaction, the responsiveness of a website. The INP takes into consideration all of the interactions throughout the entire course of using the website. So it paints a better picture in terms of how long the user has to wait when interacting with the website. It's a better metric for page responsiveness and speed. Now, ultimately, these are tiebreakers when it comes to rankings and being served up. Content relevance is always going to be more important, but you always want to provide a better user experience for people who visit your website, and NIP is a great tool and metric for developers to pay attention to improve the page speed, the experience, and all that jazz. So yeah, things still happening beyond Google I/O and SGE, believe it or not. So moving on in the world of AI and chatbots and LLM, a couple of quick hits. First off, another week, another great article from Jess Peck of Local SEO Guide. This one's on Search Engine Land, talking about kind of an SEO's guide to understanding large language models. What I love is Jess is very scientific, but she breaks it down in layman's language, kind of what you need to understand, education, how ChatGPT works, transformers work, how it interacts with humans, a lot of FAQs about like why ChatGPT lies. Well, and that's the problematic question in the first place because it doesn't have feelings or emotions or all that jazz. But then specific use cases and how you can use these LLMs for SEO in positive ways. It's not all doom and gloom, despite Jess always sounding alarms and making sure that we understand its limitations and its problems and what it is and what it isn't. Great article there. Then on the Rankable podcast, I had such a fun, humorous interview with Krista Doyle of Jasper. Jasper is an AI generative software tool. It's been around for a hot minute. It's trained on a few different LLMs at this point, but we chatted all about, if you're using generative AI, how do you maintain that consistent brand voice? We talked about Krista's perspectives on keeping up with all of the AI innovation and changes that are happening in the space. She gave her top 3 tiers of Diet Cokes. Yeah, like the actual Diet Coke, not just different diet sodas, but like fountain Diet Coke versus canned Diet Coke versus bottle. She broke it down. It was a very, very entertaining podcast interview. So definitely check that out. There was so much more that we covered. It was super interesting. And we talked a little bit about the future of AI, whether it's going in a positive direction, negative direction, cautiously optimistic. You'll have to watch it to find out where we stand. Creativity, perspectives, EEAT, user-generated content. It's such a huge opportunity for brands if you have a loyal evangelist group of people who support your brand and create videos and images and reviews and text and content all around what you're doing, this user-generated content. How can you leverage that for your SEO? Well, Tori Gray of theGray.company put together a really excellent breakdown, comprehensive ultimate guide. I'm sorry, not ultimate guide, but comprehensive breakdown of how to leverage UGC because there are risks associated with it. I mean, you can't control what your users put out in association with your brand, but she gives some guidance in terms of creating processes, to bring that out of your audience, using things for indexation and structured data and making sure that you're protecting your brand's reputation at the same time. Really well done article. Highly recommend you check it out, especially if you have a large audience and you want to leverage, their creativity and perspectives for UGC. Listen, SEO is hard. I mean, if you know what to do, it's simple in the basics, but it's hard to execute, and it's even harder to report on that it's actually working. For that reason, Olga Czar put together a comprehensive guide on how to check if your SEO is working. And what I love about this guide that she puts so much effort into is it addresses the nuances. It's not just like, are you getting more conversions? Are you getting more search traffic? No, she really breaks down how to tell that it's not working, and then specific charts and metrics and processes to look at what is actually moving the needle with your search engine optimization efforts. Like I said, she breaks it down. She goes through, things beyond page speed and core web vitals, beyond index pages and beyond core conversions, and looks at what actually matters. Check out that blog post. It's so good. On the Moz blog, Joe Cameron put together a really great article all about the guide to long tail keywords, which I think is super relevant with this SGE coming out, because as people interact with these chatbots, their long tail keywords are only going to get longer. The way we actually ask questions using natural language isn't just going to be like how to buy a bike or cool bicycle or best basketball shoes or tie a tie. We're actually going to write a longer query. And so what Joe does is gives you a whole range of different techniques to identify what those long tail keywords are. They're going to get even longer, but it's a good way to think about, kind of really think creatively and critically about the topics that you want to cover across your entire specialty niche, so that when we do get to the point of SGE, that you are kind of there, because the breadth and depth of your topical coverage covers all those long tail keywords that might ultimately end up mattering in terms of getting surfaced across queries you could have never anticipated because they're a book, a novel long of talking with the computer. I don't know. Do people do that? Are you writing books to the computer? But it's a really great post by Joe. Great work. Bringing everything full circle with this EEAT, really cool initiative by my man, Mike Ginley. So what he did is he's put together a website, just starting off, Digital EAT, kind of a little bit of a footprint for those of us who might not have our own website or just want to continue to build up our experience and expertise on the interwebs. Basically, he takes specific profiles of folks, along the lines of search engine optimization, digital marketing, paid ads, analytics, content. If you do any of that stuff, he takes your information, your bio that you submit, any articles that you've been featured on, your companies, this, that, and the other thing, like that critical EEAT information, and puts it on your own kind of personal author bio page, which is huge for your credibility and probably helps the Googles. So if you're interested in that, there is a digital EAT Twitter that you can submit your information. It is open to anyone who wants to participate. So get in on that, get your information up there on a site that's associated with all these other great high quality people in our industry and adjacent marketing industries. Awesome, Mike. Thanks. And thank you for including me. There's a fun fact about me that you might not know that you can find if you go to the link in the description notes. What is it? What is this mysterious Garrett we don't know about? I don't know. And finally, last Thursday, I was joined by my colleague John Murch on a LinkedIn Live talking all about iPullRank's rank tracking software, Exact Science. This was so cool because it was our first chance to really give a demo to walk through the product on how you can do rank tracking across multiple brands and domains, your competitors, all sorts of segmenting. We've talked about keyword, chat GPT, AI-enabled keyword segmentation, as well as some of the new features we've been rolling out, including like incorporating content relevance into your keywords. So being able to see, is your page relevant, like quantifiably, statistically, mathematically relevant to the topic keyword that you're trying to, because as we were talking about earlier, that's what's going to matter, is being relevant in the eyes of Google. And this is one way to check that. We've also added brand sentiment. So being able to look at keywords on all your branded keywords and see, are the ranking URLs on that page, is the actual page content, the sentiment of it, positive, neutral, or negative? Super important when brand reputation matters. If you do any reputation work, you can check that out. So we went through all of it, 20 minutes. We talked about the future and what this SGE might look like for rank tracking, how are we going to be able to measure our performance maybe in a pixel capacity going forward once that rolls out. Obviously, all SEO tools are going to be paying attention and trying to brainstorm ways that we can show performance on your SEO efforts, because it's only going to get more complicated. Remember, we have a 7-day free trial of Exact Science. You can put in 30 keywords and track them daily and get all that information, content relevance, segmentation. So much fun. Check it out. That's it. Another episode of the SEO Weekly in the books. And oh boy, does this feel like a big one. I have no doubt that we will be talking about the search generative experience from Google over the next few weeks, months, years. This is different. This feels different. Does it feel different to you? It feels different to me. And I'm here for it. I'm excited to see how this changes everything for everybody. And once it's rolled out, I'm very curious how, the random people in our lives, the mailman, no, I don't talk to my mailman, but my mom or dad, or whoever else that you're close with, how they search, how this might change it for them. Because if Google implements it, it's going to be in their face. I mean, ChatGPT, not a lot of people, like just average non-tech users, are trying to get involved with that, but like everyone uses Google. So we shall see. Thank you for watching. My name is Garrett Sussman of iPullRank. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to the channel, give us a like, leave me a comment, let me know what you think, share on the socials. I genuinely appreciate it. Outside of that, I will catch you next week.